So, Dr. Sabatino, other than insulin, are there other hormones we should be aware of when it comes to our wanting to lose weight?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm simplifying because we know that the entire hormonal system works in this remarkable gestalt where there's an ongoing communication where things are always being regulated. So we have the brain releasing, factors from the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland that are controlling the hormones out in the body. They control the thyroid, the adrenals. They control what's going on in the pancreas. So there's hormones that relate to the adrenal glands, to the thyroid glands, to the pancreas and insulin, as we mentioned. So all of that consort, that constellation of hormones do play together. And one of the places where you'll see this remarkably is really in the area of chronic stress in a way, which is kind of intriguing. Because when people are under stress, they have to be able to create a fight or flight response. The problem is the fight or flight response was really set in motion in the body for a very in the moment response for survival. So if I encounter a dangerous circumstance, I can fight or run away. So the body in that situation will create a series of actions. You'll have an increase in muscle tension. You'll have an increase in heart rate. You'll have an increase in blood pressure. Digestive function will slow down because you don't need to be digesting when you're trying to fight or run away. Sexual function will be kind of curtailed. There'll be a series of events that go on. As it turns out, that series of events is triggered by what's called a general adaptation response in the body, where the body has a series of responses to create the fight or flight action. And that's called the general adaptation response. And it happens in 3 steps. Number 1, you have an alarm that goes off. Now, this is not a bell, it's a chemical alarm that's mediated again by our good glands of stress called the adrenal glands. They release cortisol, they release noradrenaline, and those hormones will create all of those changes: higher blood pressure, increasing heart rate, to prepare you, to put you in that position where you can save your life. The problem is we're no longer dealing with concrete tribes and animals in present time. Our stress has now become more of the gnawing, nagging, kind of bitching stresses of interpersonal relationships, the abstractions of human communication, so that instead of being very effective in the present moment, we get lost in the sorrows of the past, or we become apprehensive and worried about our insecure future. And the truth is, the past happened already. The future may or may not occur. So in some ways, they're both an illusion. And the only moment you really have is the one that you're in. And when you lose contact with that present moment, you become less effective in dealing with the stress of your life. But here's the problem. In that adaptation response, when your body's put on alarm, now the stress is more ongoing, it's more chronic, it's more gnawing and nagging. So the body has to now resist the ongoing nature of the stress. So the second phase of that stress response is ongoing resistance. But in resistance, the body is now whipping that adrenal for that response against stress. And over time, you're going to exhaust that adrenal system. So when the body exhausts that adrenal system, that's not a happy circumstance. And the body has the wisdom to always recruit support whenever anything is faltering. So it will start to recruit another part of the hormonal system called the thyroid gland. So now thyroid will be stimulated to try to help in this ongoing stress response. And if that stress continues even longer, you'll get to a point where you deplete both the thyroid and the adrenal system, and you move into the third phase of that response, which is out and out exhaustion. And in exhaustion, you got that state of chronic fatigue, but also a debilitation, if you will, of both thyroid and adrenal. Now, understand the thyroid and adrenal are not only the glands of stress, they are the glands of metabolism. So when you move into the state of exhaustion, you now become less effective at taking weight off and less effective at keeping it off, no matter, in some cases, regardless of what you're eating under those conditions. So that's why the whole rest component, that's why stress management becomes actually a very instrumental part of weight loss. Because when you manage that stress, you allow those glands to restore themselves, and they will now take a more rightful and active place in the overall weight loss story for that individual. So I tell people, look, that's why having stress management, something in your life, whether you focus on breath, whether you do some meditation, whether you do some yoga or Tai Chi, something that allows you to deal with the chatter that you're constantly dealing with. And that's where the mindfulness comes in, because now you can bring your attention into present time. You can become more effective with dealing with the stressful events that are driving your metabolism in a negative direction. And you can actually have another nice add-on for helping you deal with weight regulation. And there's only one real remedy for deep physiological exhaustion, and that's rest and sleep. And that's why that's why those two pieces, stress management or stress and sleep deficiency, to me have been two of the biggest missing links in the weight loss story. And we now know that sleep deficiency is one of the leading causes of reactive weight gain.